Ethekwini Municipality Deputy City Manager for Community Services, Musa Gumede, joins me now for more. Thank you so much, Mr. Gumede, for speaking to us. Can you just clarify for us injuries or fatalities? We know 2 people had been treated earlier today for minor injuries. Have any other further injuries been reported so far?
Good evening. We have heard of one fatality which came just now. Sorry, I'm using a phone here and people are calling. We've heard of one fatality this evening. We've not confirmed it, but we heard that in the west, a shepherd was heading cows, or headman was heading cows, and they were swept by a high-rising river, and he's not been found. That is one fatality we've just heard of, but it's not related to what happened in Tinanda. It happened in an area in the west of Durban.
And can you tell us a little bit more related to that tornado, if we can call it that, damage to houses and infrastructure such as power cables? In the video footage we've seen, there appears to be extensive damage. I know emergency teams and disaster relief teams have been on the ground. Have they been able to conduct a better assessment of the damage so far?
Yes, we've had teams on the ground since the inclement weather was reported. When it happened at Tinanda, soon after it started, we had fire brigade on the ground together with disaster management. We're able to assist people whose houses had roofs blown off. We also had trees that had been strewn across the roads. We had to get parks and recreation to assist. We'll have more focus tomorrow in the areas affected, and we'll know exactly what is the extent of the damage. But up to so far, we've not had any loss of life in the area of Inanda that you've heard of, but we will this evening and tomorrow morning be visiting the area.
With those power cables downed, are there any areas that are expecting to be without power for extended periods?
It's quite soon to be able to be definite at the moment. It's a few hours after the incident has happened. We have people on the ground who are assessing. We have seen water pipes that were broken as well, and we're trying to fix that as well. So we're hopeful that within a day we would have been able to restore some of the services, and by tomorrow we should be able to have most of the services back online.
Now, a number of informal structures were damaged, roofs being blown off completely. You did mention a little bit earlier that you had teams on the ground assisting those people, but I can only imagine that a number of people must be displaced. Are they being sheltered anywhere specific?
Yes, we've had a few wards affected, from Ward 48 to Ward 55 and 56. So all the wards from 48 to 56 are affected, and all the halls in those wards have been open to assist the people. We are also aware that in the west it's different to in the north. Inanda is in the north. In the west, in Pinetown, people's houses have been flooded. So we're also opening halls in that area to assist people in those areas. We know that roads around Fields Hill are also blocked. We are also trying to unblock some of those roads so that people can reach home this evening. So we've got teams in different parts of the city dealing with the issues in different areas.
Now, the South African Weather Service is urging people to seek shelter as they predict more inclement weather tomorrow, especially downpours. Do we know which areas are likely to be affected, and are you urging people to evacuate any specific areas due to extreme weather?
Mostly it's if you stay in a low-lying area or where there are rivers or streams close by, you are mostly likely to be affected. Or if you are prone to areas with mudslides, you are also at risk of when this inclement weather happens. So people staying closer to rivers, floodplains, should consider moving to higher areas when such weather starts. We had identified areas which are prone to these weather patterns, and we had moved our teams closer to those areas, and they were able, for instance, at Ethekwini, there was earlier on when it started, some houses were flooded, but because our teams were close by, they were able to open the pathways for the water, and those fewer houses were affected than could have happened if they were not in the area.
So on top of the flood damage from April last year, which saw extensive infrastructure damage, now we have more damage. It's not quite as extensive, not nearly as extensive as the damage from last year. But is the municipality currently coping? Because we know that a number of those issues from last year's floods in April still have not been addressed.
This is happening quite ironically that tomorrow we were going to be reporting back anyway to the portfolio committee that is responsible for floods that happened in April. They are in the city getting feedback on how we're progressing, and we're going to advise them on our plans and what we had achieved and how far we are from achieving what we said we'll achieve. Obviously, there was an emergency funding, and then after the emergency funding, there was also funding that would take up to a year to finalize the restoration work, because initially we had to do emergency, but now we're trying to restore on a long term some of the areas. So tomorrow we're going to be briefing, we're still going to be briefing them on our plans, but now we need to add this as well, so that on those plans, so that we try and add more areas if there are new areas that are now affected, and request more funding for those areas if this funding we have is not covering some of those areas. So it's quite tough, but our teams are resistant. We will be able to deal with the problems at hand. But obviously, we request assistance from communities, NGOs for emergency care of the communities. We also require shelter for people who have had their roofs blown off. So all types of help is really would be welcome if it was to come our way. But this does not mean that the city is not able to deal with some of the challenges we face. We may be stretched, but we'll deal with them.
And I'm assuming emergency services and disaster relief teams still on high alert tomorrow as that inclement weather continues.
In fact, they are on the ground now. Our search and rescue teams who were off were called back to work this evening to try and assist. Teams of disaster management are also on the ground. Fire as well are on the ground. We've also asked roads and stormwater people to be making sure that they open up the stormwater drains which are blocking some of the areas. So all our teams are on the ground.
One last question before I let you go. I know this specific tornado hit a little bit more inland, but presumably the weather patterns are affecting the coast itself as well, and the ocean swells. With it being school holidays at the moment, I'm assuming the NSRI is also on standby, and the municipality's own lifeguards to ensure that anyone caught in rip currents or high waves at the city's many beaches will be assisted as well.
Yes, unfortunately, with all rivers running down to the ocean, what it means is that there'll be more debris going towards the beaches. And so in the next few days, what happens inland will come to the beaches and the sea. And therefore, we'll have to deal with that debris on the sea, on the shores of our beaches, and we'll have to deal with the consequences of that as well. But in terms of safety, we've made sure that our lifeguards are on standby, and obviously we'll monitor in terms of the river, the beaches, if they are swimmable or not, and if they are unsafe, we'll advise our bathers just to move to other areas. Unfortunately, it's a long weekend in terms of having the Durban July on coming this weekend. So we'll do our best to ensure that they are available still for them to enjoy themselves.
Well, thank you very much for that update, and good luck for your efforts in the city. That's Ethekwini Municipality Deputy City Manager for Community Services, Musa Gumede, just giving us an update on the situation after today's extreme weather event in Inanda and surrounding areas.